Okay, sweet. We have a really good distribution. This presentation is mostly geared at site builders on the sort of beginner to intermediate level. We're going to talk about what Drupal distributions are, why you might want to use one, why you might want to create one. And then we're going to dig into Panopoly in specific and do some live demo stuff. We will not be getting into any hardcore developer-y things. The second half will definitely be more advanced. I can try to drop like a hook name or something, keep the developers awake. But this is a site builder presentation. So that's not what you're expecting. You know, go find something you'll get more value from, I guess. All right, let's just get started right away. So, hi, I'm David Snopek. That's what I look like, in case you're wondering. I'm D Snopek on Drupal.org and everything else. I'm a freelance Drupal developer. I co-maintain the Panopoly distribution and 20-ish other open source modules on Drupal.org. I also co-organize the Drupal meetup in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you're near Wisconsin, I encourage you to come join us for one of our meetups. We have the best food at any meetup ever. The lead organizer, Terry knows, the lead organizer, Steve, makes like massive quantities of home cooking that he brings in. It's fantastic. Our next meetup is Thursday, which is the day before Drupal Camp Wisconsin in Madison. So if you're the sort of person who travels around to Drupal camps and are coming out to Madison, swing by Milwaukee the day before. Oh, and if you're a small Drupal shop, like even a one-person Drupal shop, come talk to me later. I'm working on a product for small Drupal shops. It's not finished. I'm not trying to sell anything. But I just want to talk to Drupal shops about their problems, their challenges, to make sure that I'm building something that's actually useful to other people. So please come talk to me. That would be super awesome. So we've been here at DrupalCorn Camp all day talking about Drupal. What are some examples of types of sites that you can build with Drupal? Come on, guys, shout some things out. What was that?
E-commerce.
An e-commerce site. What else?
News magazine.
Yeah, like a news site, a magazine site.
A community site.
Yeah, like a community portal where people talk, collaborate, that sort of thing. I got some of those on my slide, but really the possibilities are endless. I'm not really aware of a class of site that you couldn't build with Drupal. Sometimes there's other considerations that might make another platform more viable, scalability, some other things, but there isn't a type of site you couldn't build. But what does Drupal give you out of the box? Who here has installed Drupal 7? Or at least, seen what it looks like? Sweet. For the people who haven't seen it, after install, you get this blue thing, which is sort of a simple blog with a not terribly great content editing experience. But really, it's a blank slate. It doesn't really do anything. It's your job as the site builder to dig into the pool of thousands of open source Drupal modules on Drupal.org, find the ones you need, install them, configure them, mold it into the site that you actually want. I missed my clever, nobody wants this thing. Because, you couldn't take this site live. It won't match any client requirement document ever. When you're hoping and dreaming about your new Drupal site, it isn't this. But really, this is the power of Drupal, right? All of these modules that you can find and install and make it do what you want. But that work is up to you, right? What most people actually want is something that kind of feels like a website. This screenshot is from Open Public, which is a Drupal distribution for making websites for local governments. And when you install it, you get a website for local governments with example data. You could go through there, replace all the example data with with content about your actual local government, and go live with that in a matter of hours. People want the core functionality that they need for their site. This screenshot is from Commerce Kickstart, which after you install it, you get a real e-commerce store with a product catalog, with a shopping cart, with checkout. It's built on Drupal Commerce, which is this fleet of modules for building essentially infinitely complex e-commerce systems, not just a shop with products, when you're just starting out, it's so much easier to install something and change it rather than start from scratch and build it up. And once you know you're an expert in Drupal commerce, that story would be a little bit different, but when you're starting out. In short, people want something as close as possible to their end goal out of the box. When you're building a blog, you want to be thinking about the articles you're going to be writing, not basic commenting functionality, configuring the WYSIWYG. When you're building an e-commerce store, you want to be thinking about the products you're going to be selling, the deals you're going to be offering, not, how do I create a shopping cart. You want to be focusing on the unique value proposition of your site. And if, you're at a big organization with lots of sites, or you're a freelance site builder or work at a Drupal shop and you're building sites every day, there's probably some configuration that you do on every single site. Wouldn't it be great if Drupal just came out of the box that way? So that's where Drupal distributions come in. Who here is already familiar with the idea of a Drupal distribution? Who here has actually installed a Drupal distribution of any kind? Who's created a Drupal distribution? Oh, cool. One guy? Awesome. So a Drupal distribution is Drupal prepackaged with some contrib modules, some themes, and some configuration. It installs just like Drupal, but out of the box, it actually does something. It has a use case in mind. And the great thing is that it still is Drupal. If the distribution you installed does X, but you really need X plus Y, you can still dig into that pool of thousands of contrib modules and extend it, configure it, make it do everything that you need to do. Here are some popular open source distributions. We already talked about Commerce Kickstart, Open Public, Open Atrium for building a company intranet to communicate and collaborate with your coworkers. Drupal Commons if you want to make your own Facebook, your own online community. Open Academy, university department sites, Julio, school and high school websites. Demo Framework is a really cool example. This is a Drupal distribution created by Acquia. When they go to a client meeting to demo them Drupal, to show them Drupal, to convince them that Drupal is the answer, they don't show them Drupal 7 out of the box. They take this distribution, which has some common Drupal modules on there configured with some of the common ways people actually use Drupal, and some use cases, some example sites to actually show them. Drupal, it's an internal project management and customer relationship management tool. If you have a Drupal shop and you wanted to manage all of your internal projects using a Drupal site, you totally can using Drupal. And Panopoly, which we'll be talking about in quite a bit of detail later. Organizations also create a lot of internal distributions. The stuff on the previous slide, those were like products that you can download from Drupal.org and use, to accomplish what the product is for. But lots of people also create, these custom distributions just to make their own lives easier. Here's some big examples. But who knows how many others? They're under no obligation to tell us that they created an internal distribution to make their lives easier. And these are some big examples. But even small to medium-sized organizations can benefit from creating their own internal distribution. As a freelance developer, I've helped a number of smaller organizations create Drupal distributions. So why would you want to do that? If you're a Drupal shop, you probably operate in some niche. You don't create entirely unique sites every single time. You can package a bunch of that up in a distribution to save yourself that sort of boilerplate initial work. If you're at an organization with lots and lots of sites, like a university or a government, you can build this distribution once and deploy 100 times. So an alternative to having a distribution is just cloning sites, right? So you build one site, you've taken that one live, you're about to take a second site live, and you want to have some of the same functionality from that first site. So you could just clone it and modify it. And that, works, right? But then when you need to change some of that common functionality, you're logging into that first site and changing it, and then logging into that second site and changing it again. And maybe that's workable for 2 sites, but not 10 sites, not 20 sites, not 100 sites, right? With a distribution, you can actually make your updates to the distribution itself and redeploy that to all the sites that you've already deployed. So what is Panopoly, which we're going to be talking about pretty much the rest of the presentation? It's actually at least three things, which makes it a little difficult to explain and certainly a lot more difficult for us to develop. The first thing is that it is itself a distribution. But it's a blank slate distribution. It's a starter distribution, just like Drupal 7 core is, but we think of it as sort of a leveled up starter site. It includes a lot of the things that a lot of people want, like WYSIWYG, media, responsive layouts, and some panel stuff that we'll talk about later. But if you're a site builder and you're just starting out, I think that building on Panopoly rather than Drupal core can be a better starter experience. And I hope I'll be able to convince you of that when we get to the demo portion. So Panopoly is also a base distribution. Who here is familiar with the idea of a base theme? Okay, a couple of people. So the theme is what controls the appearance of your site. When you want to make your site look unique, you create a custom theme for it. You can create that theme from scratch, or you can start from one of a set of base themes. Some popular ones are like Zen, Omega, Adaptive Theme. And you do that to share some of the common work that the community has done, to take advantage of this sort of pre-figured out approach that the base theme had, and really focus on what is unique about your theme rather than messing about with plumbing, right? The idea with the base distribution is pretty much the same. You can create a distribution from scratch, or you can take some of the components that we created in Panopoly, some of the approach that we've already decided, and take advantage of that work and just focus on what makes your custom distribution unique. Who here is familiar with the features module? Who has actually created a feature, the features module? So a couple of people. So if you're an intermediate site builder and you want to take your game to the next level, definitely learn about features. It allows you to take configuration that you did on a Drupal site, so the stuff that you did pointing and clicking, creating your views, creating your content types, and export that into a Drupal module. And then you can take that module on another site, enable it, and it will make that configuration happen. Right? So it's a way to take configuration and share it among multiple Drupal sites. So Panopoly is actually a set of about a dozen features modules that represent like each of the components of Panopoly. So we have like a Panopoly admin feature, which contains all of the admin improvements that we make to Drupal. We have a Panopoly WYSIWYG feature that contains our WYSIWYG. And you can actually use these outside of Panopoly on just a vanilla Drupal site. So if you see this presentation and you like what we do with the WYSIWYG, you could take just the Panopoly WYSIWYG module, download it, run the makefile, install it, and just use our WYSIWYG functionality. So to summarize a rather complicated slide, Panopoly is this set of features modules doing all these different things. If you install the distribution, you're basically getting all of that stuff together at once, and you can use that to also, if you wanted to, make your own custom distribution, picking and choosing some of the Panopoly features. Hope that makes sense. So we're going to see a lot of this in the live demo, but one of the main focuses of Panopoly is improving the user experience for site managers and users. And before we look at that, I want to just talk real quick about some of the principles. We try to do a lot of the obvious things out of the box, right? Like an experienced site builder will do a whole bunch of configuration to a site to improve the user experience, and pretty much all experienced site builders are doing roughly the same thing. There's the module filter module, which puts a filter box on the modules page. Maybe we could argue about should we use that module, should we use another, but I think everyone could agree that having a filter on the module page is objectively better. There's the admin views module, which improves the content, the admin content page. I don't know anyone who prefers the Drupal core one, right? The one in admin views is objectively better, improves the user experience. So we're just trying to take some of this stuff that everyone's already doing and making it be that way out of the box. We want to try and keep users and site managers on the front end and off the back end. So we don't want them to see something on their site, want to edit it, have to go dig somewhere in the admin area on the back end to change it, and then have to go back to the front end to see the result. We want them to edit things where they're displayed. And we want to try and keep Drupalisms behind the scenes. If you're a user or a site manager, you shouldn't have to know like what a view, what a block, what a panel is in order to do the types of basic configuration on the Drupal site that we want to allow you to do. As a site builder, you're never going to escape Drupalisms. You need to know this stuff, right? But you shouldn't have to force your users to. And we try to show previews, live previews, WYSIWYG, wherever possible, to really shorten the distance between making a change and seeing its result. So there's a lot of strong emotions about the panels module. Who here loves panels? Ooh. Who here hates panels? Who here has mixed feelings about panels? Wow, okay, that was everyone. So I used to be in the hating panels camp for sure. And for me, it's because I'm a developer, right? And panels is just another pointy, clicky thing. And I don't want any more pointy, clicky things. I want to write code, right? A lot of site builders don't like panels because it's complicated. There's a learning curve. The main interface for using panels is the page manager. It's complicated. It's difficult to use. But Panopoly is actually what moved me from the hating panels camp into the loving panels camp. And I think it's about the way that we've chosen to use it. We don't just include panels in the page manager, but the best of the panels ecosystem. So about a half dozen modules that extend panels. Here's a couple of the big ones. And we also try to hide the nastiness in it from users, which is mainly the page manager. The golden rule of Panopoly is that users and site managers will never see the page manager. And the way that we've chosen to use it really allows you as the site builder to create amazing user experiences for your users, for your site managers, and allows you to do that without writing very much code. And I will try to convince you of all of these things when we get to the live demo portion, which is now. Any questions so far? All right. So this will be a mix of slides and actually playing with the Panopoly site. So the first thing that Panopoly does is it enables a whole bunch of super popular contrib modules. If you've done any site building in the past, you probably recognize quite a few of these: views, path auto, jQuery update. You probably won't recognize some of the ones in the middle. They're panel-specific stuff. But all really well-written, good modules. Lots of people are using them. Panopoly installs them and then takes responsibility for them. And what I mean by that is when an update for one of the modules that is bundled with Panopoly comes out, we'll update it, and all you have to do is update Panopoly. That includes security releases. When a security release comes out, we will update Panopoly within a day or two, sometimes on the same day, and you will be able to just update Panopoly and not worry about these modules. We also make sure to keep them at versions that allow them to work well together. We include any important patches that fix important bugs or fix compatibility in between them. Getting media and WYSIWYG to work together, for example, is like really, really delicate. We take care of all of that work for you. So basically, if you're using Panopoly or distribution built on Panopoly, none of these modules are your problem anymore. Layouts. So all websites have to handle layouts somehow. Unfortunately, most sites don't just use one layout across the entire site. They usually have a handful, 2 or 3. There's a lot of ways to do layouts in Drupal. The traditional way is through the theme system. We use panels. Through panels, we provide this set of layouts. They're all responsive, cross-browser tested. They'll work in most themes. And we allow site managers to switch the layout of individual pages, to move content between regions on that page in real time on the page as they're viewing it, all WYSIWYG style. And I'll show you that now. So this is Panopoly 1.6. When you're installing Panopoly, you have the option in the installer to install the Panopoly demo module, which is where all of these vegetable pictures and all this content comes from. You can choose not to install that, but it's totally safe. If later you uninstall that module, it will remove all of this content, so it won't mess up your site. So I've logged in. We will click this Change Layout button down at the bottom. You can see this layout is selected with the sidebar on the right. Let's switch to sidebar on the left. Click Save. Well, bam! This page is already live. So you can click this Customize this page, which allows us to grab individual widgets on the page and move them around. We can drag this over to the sidebar. You'll notice that the image has gotten smaller to fit the available space. I don't know if you caught that it was bigger when it was over here. Click Save. That page is already live.
Responsiveness, I mean, how is it mobile friendly?
Absolutely. All of the layouts included in Panopoly are responsive, which I'll show you. So yeah, we've gotten a little bit smaller. You can see these menu buttons became big finger buttons. This is like the tablet version. You can also see that the individual images here have shrunk a little bit to fit the available space. If we continue to shrink this, it'll fall into like the full mobile. There we go. So now the menu's hidden behind this hamburger icon, and the columns have gone from sidebar to a single column layout. And actually, some of the images have now gotten bigger because they have more available space in a single column. Search. So the search built into DrupalCorn is designed to run on as many platforms as possible. It's not designed to necessarily be very featureful or very performant. So Panopoly replaces the built-in Drupal search with a suite of modules called Search API, which gives you out of the box this faceted search and allows you to easily switch to using Apache Solr rather than the database, a real search engine in case you have bigger search needs. And this is provided by a Panopoly feature called Panopoly Search. If you didn't like the search improvements that we did and thought they were rubbish, you could just disable that module and it goes away. Or if you really liked them and wanted to put them on your vanilla Drupal site, right? Or if you're building your distribution and you didn't like this, you could just not put Panopoly Search in your distribution's makefile, and it won't even download Search API and all the dependencies and stuff. So you really have the power as the site builder building an individual site to decide which pieces of this you want to use, or as the distribution creator, developer, which pieces do you want to use or not use. WYSIWYG. So whether or not WYSIWYG is actually a good idea, and there are really strong arguments on both sides that I think have validity. Users love WYSIWYG. Some users expect WYSIWYG, and it's going to be in core in Drupal 8. And actually, even in Drupal 7, it's relatively easy to enable the WYSIWYG, to turn on a WYSIWYG editor and have it appear, right? But there's a plethora of problems that appear in practice. The first one is, which of these buttons in the toolbar to include. It's super easy to, add extra buttons there. It's just checkboxes on a configuration page. But some of them are a terrible idea. For example, allowing them to change the font. Suddenly everything will be in Comic Sans. It'll totally destroy all the time you put into the design. Another example is font size. They'll make one header that's 50 points, another header that's 52 points. There'll be no consistency, and you don't even really want them using font size for headers anyway. You want them using semantic header tags. So it takes a whole bunch of thinking to figure out what are the right buttons to allow them to use, what not to use. And even if you take away the button, they can still get that content into the editor, right? If they copy and paste it from another web page, if they copy and paste it from Word, even if the button isn't there, they can still get it into that editor. So not only do you have to configure the buttons, you have to configure a bunch of filtering rules to remove the things that you don't want in there. And besides filtering for control, you have to filter for security. There's some HTML tags they can put in there to spy on the other users, try and steal their personal data. And beyond that, there's some features that users expect in WYSIWYG that don't come with WYSIWYG out of the box. So you got to download other Drupal modules, do other configuration. Anyway, it seems simple to just throw it up there, but it's actually quite complex to get right. And Panopoly provides a WYSIWYG configuration that we've put a lot of thought into. So I will show you that. So one of the first things, we have this sort of first row of WYSIWYG buttons. You can click this other button to see the more advanced stuff to try and not overwhelm your users with too many buttons. Let's look at media support. It's one of the things that WYSIWYG doesn't do out of the box that's relatively difficult to get working. A feature we added to Panopoly really recently is this manual crop. Just take his cute little face. You can also choose, what image style you want, original size, quarter size. Oh, geez. There's a bug in Panopoly 1.6 with the WYSIWYG and manual crop. I wasn't supposed to show you that. It's actually fixed in Panopoly 1.7, which I attempted to release on Wednesday, but there's a bug on Drupal.org that the packager won't package it.
That's a feature.
It's a feature. So we also include the image resize filter module, so that if you resize an image in the WYSIWYG, when it serves that to the user, it will actually resize it on the server side rather than sending the full image and then resizing it.
Does that create a custom image style on the fly?
No, it's just like a custom, I think, like menu path that handles that. I'm not entirely sure.
It actually takes the large image, derives a small image, saves that as in your image cache file, and then it serves that image instead.
Do you know if it does it like when you save the node, or is it doing when someone's requesting the image?
It checks when it serves the node, and if it's too big, then it'll resize it and use that one.
Cool. Yeah, I've never really dug into the mechanics of how it works. It just works.
It just works.
So if you're going to have images, you got to have image captions, which is another thing that WYSIWYG doesn't do out of the box. We have to install a separate module to do it. And the module that we use actually allows you to keep editing the caption in WYSIWYG, which I think is really cool. Another thing that some really basic users have trouble with is links, like they don't really understand what are URLs and what to do with them. So we include the link it module, which allows you to type some keywords in your content and actually select a particular node from your site. So for local links, they don't have to figure out what URLs are. So really, in summary, why spend all of the time and headaches, trying to create your own WYSIWYG configuration when you can just use ours?
Does it also make julienne fries? It looks very nice.
Thank you. So what next? So let's look at content creation. Panopoly makes a number of improvements to the node add form. We'll go to a clean one. So the first thing you'll notice is it goes into a two-column layout, much like how Drupal 8 does a two-column layout. Yeah, we tried to really remove unimportant things, pare it down to just the minimum that you actually need. For example, under publishing options, we don't have the promote to front page checkbox. Yeah, the thing with that checkbox is it only actually does anything if you don't customize the default front page. But everybody customizes the default front page. So now for the rest of the lifetime of your site, your users are stuck with a useless checkbox. Maybe they'll try it, find out it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's just confusion for the sake of nothing, right? We also include the Save Draft module, which takes away the Publish checkbox, replaces it with these two buttons, Publish, Save as Draft, which users find a lot easier. Oh, I should ask before, who has never seen the default Drupal Node Ad page? Is there anyone who hasn't seen it? Because I can bring it up.
What is a draft?
So it just saves the node such that it isn't visible publicly.
Got it.
Like you could still go to the admin content page and find it, but it's not ready for the world.
Okay.
Yeah, we also tried to adjust the size and position of various elements based on importance. So the title is big and at the top, like a title should be. The URL that the page appears at, also super important, but we don't want it to distract you. So it's at the top, but really tiny. And this page is actually a panel. So if you wanted to further customize it, maybe make it be 3 columns instead of 2 columns and move any of this stuff around, you can do that in the page manager. You're the site builder. You're still stuck with the page manager, but your users aren't. But any further customization you want to do, you could do that without writing code. So this is content. Next, let's look at landing pages. So Drupal really rocks at content. If we wanted to make a content type and create 100 instances of it, like that's Drupal's bread and butter. Like we could make a presentation content type, put a description field on it, put a link to slides field, put a date field, and then make 1,000 of those and make some views to mash it up. Like Drupal rocks at that. What it does less good at is unique one-off landing pages like your home page. And there's a bunch of solutions to that in Contrib. You could do something with like context and beans. You could use panels. But the thing is, even if you're going to use panels, you're stuck doing it in the page manager, or your users are stuck doing it in the page manager. So in Panopoly, we've created a sort of pseudo content type. You still go to the add content page, and you've got this landing page option, but it's not a real content type. Fill out this form really quick. And behind the scenes, this is actually creating a page manager page, but rather than taking us to the page manager, it takes us to the view page so we can start configuring it with these customize this page and change this layout button. So first, let's give it a sidebar. Everybody loves a sidebar. If we could customize this page and this plus sign in one of the regions, we get this menu of possible widgets that we can add. Really basic, just like internet stuff. Links, file, image. But like in Drupal, how many ways are there to add an image to just like one page on your site? Probably 100, and they're all really, really complicated. If you're going to do it with blocks, you got to go to like admin structure blocks. You add a new block, you put it in one of those regions, but you don't really know what those regions are, right? You just have the name. You put in your HTML there. You say like, I only want it visible on this URL. You click save. Maybe it worked, right? Now you have to go find the page and see like, did something happen? All of those steps, in Panopoly, you want to add an image to an arbitrary page, just click add image. But we're going to step it up for this presentation. We are going to add a video. So you can paste into here YouTube or Vimeo URL or even the embed code. Click submit. Assuming the internet's working fast, you'll immediately see the video player appear in the preview panel. So as you're editing the settings over here, the changes appear in real time in the preview. So you can make this into a link. And you'll see, I hover over it down in the corner, it's already a link to Google. Make this reusable. I'll show you what that means in a moment. So bam, we have a video on our page. If we drag the video to the sidebar, it would shrink to fill the available space. And since we made it reusable widget, we can go to this reusable content area and click Add, and add the same widget somewhere else. And this reusable content tool isn't something that you would use as site builders. This is a tool for your users and your site managers to be able to create usable content and put it in various places on their site. But I don't actually want a video. Let's add a carousel. Everybody loves to hate a carousel.
Yeah, but that's the worst thing in the world.
But we support it. Here, we'll make this the cutest carousel ever. You'll have trouble hating this one. And you can see as I'm creating the slides in the carousel, it's already appearing up there in the live preview area. And we already have it ready for us to see even before we've saved it. Let's add a content list on the side. So this widget is actually a view. Who here is familiar with the views module? Who's actually created a view? Awesome, you guys rock. If you're a site builder and you don't know about the views module, check it out. It is the most useful tool for site builders. So this widget, this content list widget, is actually a view that we created and provide as part of Panopoly. And all of these settings on the left, these are just standard view settings that you can change. So like, let's say we don't want it to be fields, we want it to be full content. These are showing the teasers, let's show the full nodes. Or make it a table and decide which of the fields on the view we want to, oh geez, the screen is very small, it's making it quite difficult. But we can turn on and off, which fields actually get shown. And this content type select box up here, this is actually the exposed filter on this view. And you can choose which of the exposed filters you want to be available to your site managers as pane settings. So you can create really cool widgets for your site managers to use to configure their site just by creating views. You can control, I want this exposed filter to be a pane setting, and I want this other one to actually appear on the widget, like normal. You can say, I want users to be able to change like the number of items to show, but maybe I don't want them to have the ability to change the display type. You get to pick and choose which parts of your view users will be able to manipulate. And actually really like all of these things on this menu of options, this is just standard internet stuff because Panopoly is a blank slate. If you were building a Drupal distribution for musicians, like musician websites, you would have a widget here that was like add discography or add audio player. Things that you would create for your users to use. And, these bottom two, content list, content item, those are just views. All of the rest of these, those are fieldable panel panes, which is just a fancy way of saying they're entities with fields on them. Creating, a fieldable panel pane is really not any harder than creating a content type and putting fields on it. It's like this add text widget. This is just a fieldable panel pane entity that has, one of these long text with summary or, just long text fields attached to it. So you can create as much of this stuff that you want to give to your users. One last thing. Here there's this paintbrush, which allows you to choose a style plugin, a way to style this individual widget. These three options come from the Panopoly demo module. They all look horrendous. But, they're just there to have options on this list, right? When you're building this site for your users, you would provide this menu of options. You can add them in a module, in a theme. There's a module called Stylizer, which allows you to create new style plugins just using a point-and-click interface. Anyway, the point is, your users are happy because they have some control to change the appearance of their site. But You're only giving them a select menu of things that you know won't totally destroy the site. So yeah, I mean, we've only spent a couple of minutes on this, but this is already starting to look like a homepage, a terrible, terrible homepage. But this is the type of interface, type of user experience that your users, your site managers, could totally handle on their own, right? Like the promise of Drupal, of any CMS, is that you can build a thing and then hand it off to them to actually maintain, to configure, to customize. But it doesn't usually, pan out in practice. But we hope that this set of tools is something that would actually allow your users to configure it after the fact. How are we doing on time? 5 minutes? So we've been talking about Panopoly mostly as a distribution itself, as something you would use. But I think the really innovative use case of Panopoly is using it as a base to make your own distributions. And I won't go too into this because we're running out of time and it's a more advanced topic. But Panopoly gives you a bunch of low-level stuff to help you out. How to set up your make files, some best practices. We have some great documentation. If this is something you're interested in, come talk to me. I can hook you up with some great resources. But the main thing that it provides is like a framework for you to make your default things in your distribution and allow your users to then customize them. And this slide is actually like a thought exercise I usually do at the end, but we totally don't have time for it. On a standard Drupal site, you provide a lot of things as pages, you provide something as a panel, or you provide something as a view, and then your users need to go customize it, and they need to know how to use the views UI, or know how to use the panels UI, or something like that. In a Panopoly distribution, you provide everything as a panels pane, as one of these widgets. Whether you've made it as a view, whether you've made it as a mini panel, whether you made it in custom code or whatever, so your users can take your default stuff and configure it in a standard way. Like they don't need to know that this thing on the page is a view. They just click the customize this page button and click the gear by it and change it. They don't need to know that the thing above it is a viewable panel pane or that the thing in the sidebar is custom code. They just deal with everything in the same model. So when you build your distribution, you provide all of your default stuff that way and let Panopoly give them a way to customize it. Very, very quickly, here's some distributions built on Panopoly. We talked about a couple of the earlier ones. Open Church for church websites, Restaurant for restaurant websites, Push Tape for musicians. This is a pet project of mine for creating startup MVPs. These last two examples are really interesting. These are actually internal distributions built by the Canadian government and Arizona State University that they open source, that they put on GitHub. And I have no idea if Web Experience Toolkit would be useful to someone who isn't the Canadian government, right? But it's super cool that they open source it and put it out there so we have an example of how someone creates an internal distribution that they then launched 100 sites on. So very quickly at the end, I'd like to make a shout out to the other co-maintainers of Panopoly. It's not just me. Matt Cheney's the originator of the idea. Tom Kirkpatrick, one of the other co-maintainers and the maintainer of Open Academy. Just a general shout out to the Panopoly community. As maintainers, we aren't inventing all of this crap in a dark room somewhere. Really, it's the community that's creating these features and writing these patches, and we review them, act as facilitators. So really, it's our great community that has built this awesome tool. And I stole a lot of these slides from Matt Cheney's presentation. Oh, okay, this was left over from Austin. We have no sprint. But yeah, thank you, and do you have any questions?
Are the slides available elsewhere?
Yeah, I uploaded them to the DrupalCorn website already.
I was just wondering, have you seen where you determine what things you allow users to use? Have you?
Sure, I mean, there's a lot of different places, actually. It depends on what the thing is. Since we're really running out of time, maybe you could come by and I could show you afterwards, but it's really clear, in the views interface, there's a button that says, there's a dialogue with 10 checkboxes that says, I want to allow them to change this, I want to allow them to change that. So, cool. Any other questions?
as we go in to evaluate this, would you recommend like doing a fresh install of Panopoly and then kind of look around in there and then try and merge that into an existing Drupal 7 website?
I
Or would
think
you say just try and push it into a...
I think your first idea was the better idea.
Yeah.
To bring up a Panopoly site and really get
See
used to
what
what's
it's
all
supposed
in
to look
there.
like, and then
Yeah.
try to
And-
push it in your site and see how it,
Mhm.
what you're missing in the other one, I guess.
Right.
Caveat on that, it sounds like he's trying to push a Panopoly distribution into another existing Drupal 7 site. If that's what he means, the answer is no.
Well, you can definitely do that. We have documentation on how to do
And
it.
the answer is yes, thank you. So historically, distributions couldn't do that, but Panopoly is the exception.
So we purposely decided that that was one of the use cases we wanted to support,
Really?
and we do support it. So if you go to the Panopoly page on Drupal.org, there's this very inconspicuous read documentation link, and we have really quite a lot of information. So on the installing Panopoly page, there's a section on installing on an existing site, and it walks you through how to using Drush. So if you're a site builder, I highly recommend learning Drush at some point. It's super useful. But walks you through how you would put just a single module from Panopoly on the site, or if you wanted to put all of the Panopoly modules onto an existing site.
So we're building and making there rather than just like downloading and enabling.
Yes, so each of the Panopoly features comes with a make file, which includes all of its dependencies, and sometimes very, very important patches, particularly surrounding WYSIWYG and media and some of the more difficult stuff. So yeah, a little bit different than normally installing modules. You have to run the make file.
So, kind of the big question in the room, how are you on track for Drupal 8?
It's a very good question. So we very recently started a panels and D8 initiative, and we're working on it. Mostly Tim Plunkett's working on it. Honestly, I'm working on a Drupal 8 version of the page manager. I expect that we will have a Drupal 8 version around the time that Drupal 8 is released, not a full stable version, because there's so much stuff in Panopoly. Like, we're really taking advantage of all this amazing contrib work that's been done over a very long time, and that just doesn't exist in Drupal 8. But we will have like an alpha or something really, really basic around the time that Drupal 8 comes out. And actually, in Panopoly, we use a whole bunch of modules that are actually backports from Drupal 8. So some examples. Actually, the theme that we bundle is Responsive Bartik, which is a backport of Bartik in Drupal 8. This toolbar is a backport of the toolbar module from Drupal 8. It's called navbar for Drupal 7. There's really a plethora of examples. We tried to take what we could, from Drupal 8 so that you could use it today.
So if we put this on the site for today,
Mm-hmm.
then it'll be in a good position to migrate to 8? Or at least
Migrations.
a better position than the site without it?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say no. I mean, migrations are going to be difficult from any Drupal 7 site to a
Right.
Drupal 8 site. I don't think that Panopoly makes that any worse for you. And some of the user interface stuff that you see in Panopoly will be how Drupal 8 is by default, so you'll get used to it. But I don't think it'll make migrating any easier, unfortunately.
You bundle the theme with it. Will it coexist pretty well with pretty much any theme?
So not any theme, because we use a whole ton of contrib modules, and sometimes there are conflicts between this contrib module and this theme.
In-place editors, I know in particular, can choke on
Yeah,
some things.
I'm not sure I've seen one where it was in-place edited and messed up. I totally would believe it if you had an example. But yeah, it'll work with most themes. I've seen people use Zen, Omega, Adaptive Theme, the big ones. We actually have 2 base themes that are written specifically for Panopoly. There's Kala Theme, which is created by Kalamuna, and Radix, which is used in OpenAtrium as their base theme. So, there's a lot of options, and even some Panopoly-specific ones that'll help you create a theme for Panopoly.
But if we
Hand
use
up.
it,
Regarding distributions,
Mhm.
if core is updated, do I update a new distribution, or how do you handle that?
So we have some great updating documentation on the Panopoly page. But so the answer is that you don't update core yourself. you update Panopoly. So the reason that I made a Panopoly 1.7 release on Wednesday is because there was the core security release, Drupal 7.29. And if Drupal.org wouldn't have had this packaging error, you could have, the same day that that was released, update Panopoly and have that security release.
And in general, how do you update a distribution?
So you download the new version of the distribution as if it were Drupal core. So you treat like Panopoly as your Drupal core.
Got it.
And we have some pretty good documentation about, when you're updating that, like as it's just a Panopoly site. We have some different documentation for how you update it if you are making a distribution built on Panopoly, but I highly recommend our documentation. Yeah, there's a big warning up at the top that you should not try to attempt updates of anything that Panopoly has included on your own, because we are managing very specific versions, sometimes specific patches that allow everything to work together.
Just a quick shout out if people want to have a simple way of testing this out and playing with it. GetPantheon.com is by far the simplest way of getting that done.
Yeah, if you haven't used Pantheon, when you create a new site, it'll give you like a list of some popular Drupal distributions to just install. And there's some really cool stuff on there. There's Open Atrium, there's Open Academy, and there is Panopoly. So that's a really fast way to try it out.
For free.
Really?
So for the updater, Drupal sends out, like if you have updated,
Yeah.
it sends out a notification to you guys.
So this is like a huge support problem for us. We're working on a Panopoly module that will hide the update messages for any of the modules we're bundling. It's not finished yet, but like the thing is, this is the best practice. This isn't just a Panopoly thing. Like all Drupal distributions, you should not update the things that it bundles with on your own. But so few people know that it constantly happens. They'll say like, I updated this and then everything broke. It's like, well, yeah.
But we would get a notification that there's a new security release of Panopoly, and then we would go and update that.
In an ideal world, yes. Not currently. It'll still bug you about the individual releases, unfortunately. But we're working on it.
Okay.
I saw some hands over here earlier. Was there a question over here? No? Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.